Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. This is a really big treat for me today. We've done probably over 100 episodes now, and early on when I started this podcast, I thought of who would I reach out to invite to be on the show. And I'll be honest, there were some people out there that I knew would be great on the show, but I was a little intimidated. I didn't want to reach out to them quite yet. I wanted to kind of have a few episodes under the belt before I reached out to him. And my guest today is one of those guys. I've got Tom Rosenbauer. Tom is the Chief Enthusiast for the Orvis company. And for anybody that's listened to the show before, they know, maybe they've heard me speak about working at Orvis and my time there. So this is a really big treat. Tom, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Jason. It's fun talking to you. And I don't know why you're intimidated by me, because you and I travel a lot together.
I know.
Fish together, work together. So
you know what it was is we worked on a professional level together, friendly level. And it was just like when I got this thing started, I wasn't sure where it was going to go. I didn't want to waste anybody's time, especially the people I really respected. And now I think I got to about 100 episodes released, or at least uploaded. And I'm like, okay, now I feel confident that I can reach out to you, Tom. For anybody that's listening to this, part of that is that Tom is a very well-known podcaster. In addition to many things, he is the host of, I guess it's the Orvis podcast.
The Orvis Fly Fishing Podcast.
The Orvis Fly Fishing Podcast, right. Yep. And it's been around for a long time. So we're going to dig into that a little bit, but also just, you've been around. That makes you sound like I'm saying you're old. I'm not.
I know I am old.
But you've been around in the kind of the outdoor space, let's call it that, for quite a while.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crossover between adventure travel, adventure tourism. You and I have been on some adventures together with Orvis clients. So anyway, so happy. And Tom, what the heck is Chief Enthusiast?
Well,
that's an interesting title I've never come across.
It's what they call you when you've been with a company for 49 years and they don't know what else to call you.
Okay.
Kind of like one step before being put out to pasture, I think, Jason.
All right. I get that. What was your first title, your first job at Orvis? What was it?
Clerk.
Okay.
Clerk in the retail store, and at that time Orvis had only one retail store. Now there's about 70 of them. I was like, you couldn't get any closer to the bottom than where I started.
Well, yes, but that's the place to start, isn't it?
Yeah, in the fly fishing industry, in particular, I get a lot of questions on my own podcast about, how do I get a job in the fly fishing industry? Because it's a passion industry and people love it and they want to work in it. And I tell them, you know what? Nearly everybody has started that stayed with it, started in the retail business because it's a tiny industry. Everybody knows everybody, and you need to develop a network. And one of the best ways is to work in retail. And as a lot of people know, retail, for most people, is a horrible job, but some people love it and some people really embrace it. But for people like me, it's not what I wanted to do.
Well, I get that. And I think that, I'm happy this came up because I had the same experience. I remember I started teaching myself how to fly fish, was reading your books.
And you're really making me feel old.
This was a really long time ago, back when the books were on paper even, but I was teaching myself how to fly fish, reading books, reading everything I could get my hands on. And I decided, okay, I want to work in this business. And so what I did, I'd gone into some fly shops and had some conversations, but it was always, they've got other things going on. I knew that they had a lot of people like me coming in. Oh, how do I get a job in this business? How do I become a fly fishing guide or whatever?
Yeah.
And I decided I signed up for a fly tying class. I know you're quite a fly tyer. I really have very little interest in tying flies. But what I realized was that if I signed up for a fly tying class, there would be 2, 3, maybe 4 students for an hour with this guy who was working in the business. So I figured I would have an hour every week to sit there and pick this guy's brain, to learn a little bit about what he was doing, to develop a relationship with him, so that when I said, how do I do what you're doing, not necessarily teaching fly tying, that he would be more receptive to it. And that was, I think, probably within about 6 months of that, I was, got my first job in the business. So yeah, it's kind of the way we do things, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We're gonna chat a little bit about fly fishing. We're gonna chat a little bit about Orvis, but one of the things that came up for me this morning before I hit the record button, Tom, was that I've spent a lot of time around you, both in the field, the office, eating at the lunch table at the Orvis headquarters. And I never really heard your story. I heard little stories here and there, but if someone asked me, where did Tom grow up? How did he start in the business? This is the first time I've heard that. So let's go back. I want our listeners to kind of get a feel for how you got from where you were to where you are now. We already just briefly touched on that first job, but I suspect there was something going on before that. So how far back do we need to go to understand you, Tom?
Well, it's not really that interesting of a story, but I'll tell you anyway. It's just,
well, it might not be to you.
my dad used to take me fishing when I was a kid, really young. He was a worm fisherman, liked to sit on the bank and catch bullheads and white perch and stuff in Lake Ontario. And I took to it. I was always interested in critters, reptiles and fish and stuff like that. So I took to it, and I decided he started playing golf pretty seriously. And I decided when I was 11 or 12, I had a bicycle that I wanted to learn how to fly fish. I'd seen it on the American Sportsman and in magazines, Field and Stream and Outdoor Life. And I thought it looked interesting. I thought it looked like a fun, interesting way to fish. So I taught myself. There weren't many. Of course, there was no video, no internet, no YouTube, and the books that were out were pretty bad at the time for learning. But I taught myself. I hacked my way through it. And then I had a friend in Boy Scouts who was also interested, and we kind of taught each other and compared notes. And I started tying flies. And there was a guy who had a guy named Carl Coleman. I grew up in Rochester, New York, who had he just passed away recently. He was really my mentor. He had a little fly shop in his garage and sold Orvis stuff. And I went in to, buy some stuff. And he looked at my flies and he said, "Boy, these are really good. Do you want to tie for my shop?" And I said, "Whoa." Yeah.
Yeah.
Better than a paper route. So he gave me some more lessons and took me fishing a couple times. He was a brilliant angler, really brilliant fly fisher, very, very smart guy. And I started tying flies for him. This was, when I was 12, 13 years old, and tied throughout high school for him. Made a fair amount of money back in the late 60s, early 70s, a lot of money for a, teenage kid.
Do you remember what flies sold for then? I mean, I haven't been fly fishing in a while. I suspect it's gone up a bit. But do you remember, if you walked in and bought, an Adams or Parachute Adams or something at a fly shop back in the 70s, what did that cost?
I probably at 75 cents, 50, 75 cents.
Okay.
Now they're $2, $3. So
All right. So what was your cut on that as a 12, 13-year-old kid?
I don't remember.
I'm just
I
trying to
don't.
imagine that.
I
Boy,
don't
you're so much
remember.
more patient than I am.
Yeah, I don't remember. Well, I wasn't patient at all. My mother can tell stories of me yelling and
Oh,
screaming in the basement when things didn't go right. Um,
okay. I before we move on, I want to ask one question because you said your dad kind of brought you up. You're talking about, fishing for bullheads, bait
yeah.
fishing, stuff like
Hmm.
that. Sounds like he maybe got into the Gulf. I'm curious, when you started teaching yourself to fly fish, was he supportive about that? Because sometimes there's this
Yeah.
thing about
Yeah.
fly fishing and bait fishing, and oh well, bait fishing is not good enough for you. You're going to go fly fish.
Yeah.
So, did you get any resistance from him or anyone in your family or friends?
The only resistance was no, he didn't. He didn't have any resistance to it. Because I had a bicycle and I was able to go out and fish by myself. He never fly fished. He didn't have the patience. My father was not a patient person. Um, he didn't have the patience to learn. And the only thing, he was a child of the Depression, and when he found out I spent $20 for a fly rod at Western Auto, he thought that was ludicrous. But other than that, no, he was supportive.
Were you into catch and release right off the bat
No,
when you were fly fishing? Okay.
no, I would whack him on the head and bring him home. And then when I started doing more catch and release, my father would be pissed because I
Yeah.
wouldn't bring home any fish.
That's why I wanted to ask that, because I remember when I got into fly fishing, my grandfather, my mom's dad, had taught me to fish, and we'd always go out and we'd come back with a bunch of fish, and we
Yeah,
always had
yeah,
trout in the freezer.
yeah.
And when I was started to, tell him that, oh, I'm getting into fly fishing, and he'd say pretty much every time he knew I was going, he'd say, oh, bring some fish back for me. Oh, Grandpa, I don't do that anymore. And he just could not get his head around it. And I think there was some kind of like, oh, you're, one of those guys now. So yeah, I
Yeah, I
can,
didn't have any problem with killing fish when I first started fly fishing. It's just that, if you kill a fish, it takes time out of your fishing. You got to stop
yeah.
and gut them and drag them around, and I didn't want any part of that. Not that I
And after
didn't.
you've eaten enough of them, you're kind of like
Yeah,
the reward. It's like it's
trout
so
aren't
much easier
that
to let them
great.
go and keep fishing. No,
Yeah, trout aren't that great to eat. There's lots better fish to eat, in my opinion. So,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, very very cool. So, so you were tying flies. You set up
yeah.
until you were 18. What was school like? What things were you interested in school?
Not much. I was not. Well, I mean,
Okay.
I like fly. I like fly fishing. I was a geek.
All
I
right.
didn't.
All right.
I didn't play any sports except track, and I was kind of the weird kid who went, fly fishing, and
All right.
I
Did you
was
have
not.
aspirations for what you wanted to? Sometimes when we're teenagers, we get ideas. Oh, this is what I want to do for a living, this
Yeah,
and that. Or other times we have no idea. I'm just curious.
I
Did you
wanted to
think
be
you would end up in
Gadabout
this?
Gaddis. Do you remember who Gadabout Gaddis was? You're probably too young to remember
No,
that.
no.
Gadabout Gaddis was a TV show. It was called The Flying Fisherman, and he had an airplane, a little Piper Cub, and he would fly all around in his airplane and go fly fishing. So that's who I wanted to be, Gadabout Gaddis.
All right. That's very, very okay. That's very cool. So, what was your plan when as a teenager? How did you get to be Get About Gaddis? Is that Get
Well,
About?
then I realized that I was not going to be Gadabout Gaddis, and so I pursued an education in fish biology and
Okay.
aquatic entomology, which fit in well with my passion. I went to the College of Environmental Science and Forestry in Syracuse, and was and tied flies for another fly shop in Syracuse during my college years, and then I actually taught fly tying classes. And the guy had a mail order fly tying business, and I would package feathers and stuff for him and work in his bait. He had a combination bait shop, fly shop. There'd be Orvis bamboo rods next to the minnow tank,
Oh,
so
nice.
it was kind of in a seedy section of downtown Syracuse. It was a really interesting place.
Do you
There
remember
was a
what years?
there was a mafia coffee shop next door, and I
Nice.
mean, gambling joint slash coffee shop, and yeah, it was pretty interesting
Do you
place.
remember what years you would have been there?
72 to 76.
Okay, all right. Because I was in my mom went to graduate school in Syracuse,
Uh-huh.
but we were there in the late '80s. So I was just
Uh-huh.
wondering if it would be interesting that. But I can relate to Syracuse. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Very cool. So
Yeah.
then, so you were doing that. I was curious. Were there other people in these classes going to school with you that were also into fly fishing? Because
No,
it seems like
it's
a good
funny.
choice.
It's funny in those days, young people didn't fly fish, right? They didn't fish much at all. I mean, there were like I think there were 2,000 students in the forestry school, not a big school, it's a state school, and the only fly fisherman was a teaching assistant that I had in ichthyology, and he was a Catskill native, and so he and I became fast friends. But there was not another student that fly fished in the whole College of Environmental Science and Forestry. Not one.
Wow, wow.
It's different these days, now
yeah.
colleges have fly fishing clubs, and it's great. There are so many young people, but back in those days, it was the province of old white men, and I was really the oddball.
Do you think the other students were interested in fishing, just not fly
There
fishing,
were a
or?
couple that were interested in fishing, or actually weren't that many that were interested in fishing either. It was weird.
Huh. Yeah, I can imagine that would be a good route. I mean, when you said you
Yeah,
went to school,
yeah,
study ichthyology and aquatic
yeah,
biology, and like, okay,
yeah.
yeah, that makes complete sense. And what was the goal with getting a degree in that? What did you
Well,
envision yourself doing?
I graduated with a bachelor's degree, a bachelor of science. And to do anything in fisheries, I would have had to go to grad school. And I didn't have enough money to go to grad school. So I saw an ad in the Orvis News, which was a newsprint publication. I had been to Orvis, I had Orvis rods since I was a teenager in reels. And so I said, well, maybe I can work for Orvis for a couple of years and then go back to grad school, make some money. Well, I wouldn't make enough money
You
to
don't
go
make that
back to
much money
grad
working as a
school.
clerk
No. And
at the
B,
Orvis, right?
I just never left. So, I took a job at Orvis. They needed a warm body who knew something about fly fishing. I ended up spending most of my time measuring inseams on chinos for wealthy people from Connecticut and New Jersey. That was not my thing, but so luckily some other things opened up in the company. Fishing school instructor and running the fly department, and I just did a lot of different things. Worked on the telephones, taking phone orders during the winter, and taught fly fishing during the summer.
That was one of the things I enjoyed most at Orvis was just the lunch conversations, just sitting at the lunch table listening
Yeah,
to, I probably should not use the word the old timers, but I'm going to use the word the old timers. Anybody that could say that they used to take orders. When things would get busy, they would have to start answering the phone and taking orders,
yeah,
because anybody that knows Orvis now or during the days when I was there, the Orvis order takers, that was like a whole big thing in Roanoke. It was a whole
yeah.
separate thing.
And it
It's
was all internet. By then, it was all internet
or
orders.
yeah, or internet. So to hear the
Excuse
people
me.
there in Vermont that, they'd say, well, one minute I was out, sweeping the parking lot out in front of the store. The next minute I was stocking the fly bins. Next
Yeah,
minute I was on the phone taking orders for
right.
waiters
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah,
It's like, it was quite a bit different.
yeah.
And you're still living in Vermont. I kind of
Hmm.
know this, but I'm going to ask
Yeah.
this anyway. Um, you thought maybe you'd stay at Orvis for a couple of years. I'm just curious, like, does the Vermont part of this fit into your equation? Do you just love Vermont, or was it more the job that kept you around? Combination? I was just
Yeah,
curious.
it was the job. I mean, Vermont's nice. It's rural. It's quiet. It's peaceful. It's safe. Um, the fishing is better other places, but I've learned to embrace the small stream mountain trout that we have. And if you want better fishing, bigger fish, hatches, whatever, you go somewhere else.
When I had the opportunity to go to Orvis, I think some of our listeners know, that I went to Orvis to work in the travel department as my first position there was fly fishing travel manager. And I was in Montana before that. I had the drift boat. I was doing some guiding. The fishing was super, super important to me at that point in my life. And I remember thinking, wow, Vermont. And I was like, okay, I can do that because I'm going to have the opportunity to travel, visit some of these other places, which I think is kind of a similar experience that you've had as well. With your position, you've got some opportunities to go out and visit some of these places as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I get that. I've been on trips with you. What's the trip? Because, the Adventure Travel Podcast, I guess we should speak about a trip.
Yeah.
What's a trip or an adventure that you've had that really left a mark that maybe changed your life a little bit, or just anything come to mind?
I would think my first trip to the Rocky Mountains, we had a gentleman named Vern Bressler who ran a lodge in Jackson Hole, outside of Jackson Hole and Wilson. And he was a very close friend of the owner of Orvis, the late Lee Perkins Sr., LHP, as we called him. And Lee came to me one day and said, "Tommy," he always called me Tommy, "we got to get you out west. You need more experience." And he sent me out to spend a couple of weeks with Vern and his sons. And I stayed at the ranch and, caught my first cutthroat and learned what Rocky Mountain fly fishing was all about. And that was probably one of the most influential trips, just my first, trip outside of the East to see what the rest of the world was like. And then I guess Christmas Island was my first saltwater experience. Lee started sending me, because at the time, I think I started editing the Orvis News, which is the publication that I answered the help wanted ad from, and
that's cool.
took that over and needed more experience to write the stories and so on. So he sent me to a lot of places, Christmas Island and Kamchatka and Bahamas.
It's very, very cool.
So I got to do things that a kid that didn't grow up with much money, or parents never traveled outside the United States. I got to do a lot of things in Orvis that I never would have been able to do.
Do you think there was a point during the last, you said 49 years? How long have you been there?
No, 49 years. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think there was a point in that during those 49 years that you made a conscious decision to stick around until you became the chief enthusiast, or was it kind of an accidental thing?
Yeah, I never had a big life plan. I just kind of fell into things, and I guess I made my own luck. You make your own luck, but I don't know. Maybe it was laziness or momentum, but I enjoyed what I was doing for the most part, and eventually made enough money to survive. And
I think it's one thing that's maybe a little unique about you compared to some of the other people that have come into the fly fishing business. I'm going to say for a period of time. There's a lot of people you and I know that have that period of their life where they worked in the fly fishing business, and then got distracted, lost interest.
Got a real job.
That's where I was going with this. Got a real job. And what I think's great about you is you've got that consistency. You called it, maybe it was laziness, I'm not sure, but you've got a consistency that we generally don't see that often in the fly fishing. I hate to say the word fly fishing bum, because I don't think you are, but you kind of are.
Yeah, I
don't know. Does that word resonate?
I'm definitely doing it because I love to fly fish. I am a fly fishing bum.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
When I host trips, I do a lot of trip hosting now, and when people say, "Do you fish when you host those trips?" I say, "Wait, you crazy? I wouldn't do this if I didn't fish every day."
Tom, here's what I remember of leading trips with you. is absolutely that. Because as you know, you and I know each other, and I like to fish. I was very passionate about it. My son's middle name is Angler. It was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
And when we were leading trips, I was much more likely to be back at the lodge with the guests in the evening,
Yeah.
entertaining, just
Yeah.
connecting, conversing, and they'd be like, "Where's Tom?" Well, I saw him walking down the beach about 2 hours ago. I'm hoping he makes it back before dark.
Jason, I'll have you know I am much better now because you were the host and I was like, I don't know, the
Okay. You're like, oh,
co-host.
Jason, you
And
take care of them.
now I'm a much better host. I'm back. I'm back for dinner. And I never thought I would be a good host on trips because I like to fish too much. But
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying now the challenge of making sure that everyone's happy and everyone's having a great day and that they're matched with the right guide during the day. So I'm different now, Jason.
I
I've grown up.
I
I've grown
know,
up.
and I say it jokingly because you're right. It was more of a, Jason's job is to go along, make sure, he's the one that put together the trip. He's the
Yeah,
one that
yeah.
booked everybody, and he's kind of has, that was my job, and you were there as the chief enthusiast.
I wasn't officially the chief enthusiast then.
Well, I would have used that term at the time, but it was so much fun having you along because you would take time out of the day to spend with guests and teach them things and have conversations about things, and
Yeah.
everybody just always enjoyed having you along. And I think you were brilliant. You're like, yeah, Jason's got this.
Yeah.
I need to go explore a little bit. If I find
Yeah.
something cool, I'll come back and tell everybody about it. So it was just a lot of fun. And every once in a while, like especially like right at the beginning, before the guests arrived or after the guests left, I got to go with you, and that was fun too. So
Yeah.
yep, a lot of fun. So what's trying to think here. What's like, are you going to stay in Vermont? I'm just going to ask you this. Maybe you shouldn't answer this. I'm sure you've had conversations with Robin about it, but
Yeah, well, we both love Vermont. My wife and I both love Vermont. My kid loves Vermont. And we've I've thought of eventually spending half the year in Chile because I've hosted a lot of trips in Chile and I've done a lot of filming for a TV show called The New Fly Fisher in Chile. And I love the people. I love Patagonia. And uh, I'm, you know, I'll stay in, I think I'll stay in Vermont. I got too much fly tying stuff to move anywhere and too many books
ooh, yeah,
to move anywhere.
that can make it challenging.
And we love it here. I live in a rural setting. I have no visible neighbors. I live in a dairy farm valley, and I have a trout stream in my backyard, and we have lots of cool places to hike. We forage a lot. We hunt mushrooms, and my kid is really into foraging and botany. So it's a good place. It's a good place to be for what we want to do.
Most of the stuff and part of why I wanted to ask that is most of the stuff that you're doing for Orvis now, are you, I guess I'm going to ask you, are you working remotely? Could you work remotely? Are you still going into the office?
During COVID, I, of course, started working remotely as everyone did. And I just never went back. I set up a live streaming video studio right here. It's right behind me. To do live streaming fly tying lessons because we realized pretty early on during COVID that, hey, we got to keep our customers engaged, and what are we going to do to keep them engaged with fly fishing with Orvis? So I would do, live lectures on leaders and knots and fishing, and I do live fly tying. So I developed a 3-camera setup for doing fly tying, and then I set up my podcast studio in the basement in a quiet room. And after COVID was pretty much over, not a lot of people didn't go back to the office, as with a lot of
right.
a lot of companies. And so I'm very happy working here at home. I do go into the office once a week or so because I'm very close to the product developers
Hmm.
and we're good friends and fishing buddies. And of course, I need to know the products. So I spend some time with the product developers.
Are
Um,
most of them still working in the office,
yeah,
or
they are
still, or
because
they are
they
now?
need to
Right.
interact. They need to have samples in front of them and interact. So um, they're going back to the office most days.
I'm curious because the your podcast has been around for a long time. You were doing it when I was there. Um, when we went into COVID, it sounds like you came up, okay, we need to do some things, these live stream classes,
Yeah.
lessons, stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
I get that.
Yeah.
You started those as a result of COVID, right?
Yeah, we started it within a couple weeks of the lockdown. We just said
Okay.
we gotta do something.
So what happened? I'm curious. Like, did that work well? What happened to your, like, did the podcast become more popular during COVID? And
It's
then,
funny, the podcasts downloads actually went down during COVID. They were popular, but the download numbers went down, and I believe it was because people weren't commuting
I was wondering
and they
about that.
didn't have the drive. They didn't have the drive time, so they were spending more time, I think, watching video than they were listening to audio.
Hmm. Yep. That makes sense.
And so, but they were still popular, and I still continued them. And then I had more time because I was here at home all the time, so I was able to do them once a week.
Okay. And then with the videos that you started, did you continue those? Or are you still doing those? And what happened as we
I
came out
do
of COVID?
what I do now is once a month I get on with two of the best fly tyers in the world. Tim Flagler from New Jersey and Cheech from Fly Fish Food in Utah, and they're superb fly tires. And we have a live contest where we all tie the same fly live, and people at the end get to vote on who tied the best fly. And we have a lot of fun. There's a lot of trash talking, and they're both good friends, and people. It's very very popular. People
Yeah.
love it, so we still do that.
Isn't it cool how we're able to connect with people? Like we had a lot of the technology before COVID, but after just this ability and the willingness for like you and I to get on this call, I'm in Colombia, you're in Vermont, we're
Yeah,
sitting here
yeah,
looking at each other on the computer
yeah,
screen. You're doing these fly tying fun events with these other tires in different parts of the world. And
yeah,
it really seems to have kind of changed the nature of how we communicate. Just like, it's hard for me to imagine you not being at the office every day,
yeah.
in
I
Sunderland,
don't, I
that's,
don't. Yeah,
it's like, I don't know. Cause that was the thing I probably enjoyed the most about Orvis, honestly, was being in the office. Most of the jobs and careers and businesses I've had, I've been a little bit more of a lone wolf. And
hmm,
that's something I miss quite a bit is having that connectivity.
yeah,
But
yeah,
then also the technology now, I can kind of be where I want to be. And
yeah.
that's pretty cool as
Yeah, so
well.
I definitely miss going into the office, and I miss the face-to-face interaction, and so I
Mhm.
do go in occasionally, but it's just easier and more efficient for to work here.
Right. Right. So, boy, we've just discussed quite a few things. I've had enough conversations with you. I'm like, did I discuss this now, or I just happen to know this about you from the
Yeah.
past? I'm curious, is there anything big and kind of exciting or new and that you're super passionate about that you want to share with our listeners?
Well, fly fishing is a gear-oriented um, business, right? And so there's always, every year, there's new stuff. There's new waders, there's new wading boots, there's new rods, lines, leaders, whatever. And so I mean, I'm interested in it. I know customers are interested in it too. And working closely with the product developers, I get to see the new toys because it's all about the toys. And I write tech bulletins about the products to be used in our retail stores and with our dealers. And so that, that's always, and then in the past few years, I've started to host a lot more trips, international, mostly international trips. Um, and that I take a great pleasure in. It just gets me to some cool places and meet
Mm-hmm.
really interesting people. And yeah, so that's become a big part of my job now.
Do you have a place that's kind of on your, I always hate the question, what's your favorite place? I kind of asked
Yeah,
you if you had memories of a particular trip, but
yeah.
I'm not going to ask you specifically what's your favorite place, but are there any places or destinations that you kind of have your sights on or that you're particularly interested in right now?
There are so many, Jason, that I can't
That's
begin to. I mean, I'm going to Spain. I'm hosting a trip to the Pyrenees in September. I've never been to Spain. I'm excited about that. There's a trout fishing um, venue in northern Italy, which I would really love to go to. There's one in Slovenia, which I would love to go to. I've never been to New Zealand. I'd like to go to New Zealand. And there are places in Vermont that I want to visit that I haven't seen. I'd like to go carp fishing on Lake Michigan because I hear that's really exciting, and I love to fish for carp, which are very challenging, strong fish. So yeah, there's so many of them. I mean, fly fishing isn't just about trout, right? People need to understand that fly fishing, you can do it for sailfish, which I've never done. You can do it for marlin, which I've never done, which I want to do. You can do it for bass and panfish, and there's just God, there's endless places that I haven't been to that I want to go to.
and it's a great I don't, maybe it's not an excuse for you, but I think for me sometimes it's like, I'm not sure excuse is the right word, but when you're into fishing, into fly fishing, there's so many great places,
Yeah,
not just for the fishing, there's just interesting
yeah,
places.
yeah,
And sometimes it's like, well, for me, when I was really ensconced in the fishing business, many of the places that I had the opportunity to go to, I probably would not have gone to had
oh
I not
yeah,
been so
oh
passionate
yeah,
about the fishing. I wouldn't have found myself spending so much time in Chile and Argentina
yeah,
or Africa or New Zealand and all these places that it was like I got to go, one because I had a job that it made sense. I was running the fishing travel business,
yeah,
but also it's just a great excuse to go to these places.
yeah.
You actually, some of our listeners may have already heard, but we had Jeremy Carine on the show, who is is kind of, I guess I was his predecessor. Is that the right way to put this?
Yeah, yeah, he's
He joined
managing the
Orvis.
the fly fishing travel now.
Yeah, so I had hired him back in the day, and I something popped up in LinkedIn the other day that it's like 13 years that
Yeah,
he's been there. It is, probably like you're like, wow. Sometimes those reminders, those social media reminders, those LinkedIn things come up, and you're like, wow, I'm kind of been around for a while. But just to imagine that he's been there that long. And so when you're leading these trips, are you working closely with Jeremy
yes,
or
very
the other?
closely. Yeah,
I,
I
I
talk
would
to
guess
Jeremy
so.
probably 3 or 4 times a week. So,
I
it,
kind of
yeah,
gathered that was the
yeah,
case. So
yeah,
had a great conversation here with him on the show. So anybody that's particularly interested in fly fishing travel, Orvis, go back and check out Jeremy's episode as
yeah.
well. He's a neat person. There's so many
We're
great people.
co-hosting a trip to Iceland this summer in July, which I'm
Really?
really excited about. Yeah, because I love hanging out with Jeremy. He's a great angler, and so we're doing a two of us are doing a trip to Iceland.
Okay. Anybody that's listening to this, whether I don't know if you know Jeremy, if you know Tom, but I'll tell you, that's a dream trip. To go on a trip with you and Jeremy would be amazing. So, like,
I think there's a couple spaces left too.
yeah, I'm not sure by the time this episode gets released, I'm not sure if they'll, have the spots, but definitely reach out. Either I'll connect, whatever. We'll figure out a way to connect everybody. Obviously, we've got a link to the Orvis website in the show notes. And if there's a particular trip, if that's, mentioned as well, I can throw in a link specifically to that trip. So after we're
Hmm.
done with this
Yeah,
conversation, we can
it's on the
discuss that.
website. Yeah.
Yeah. So just look at the show notes because a trip with you and Jeremy would just be so much fun. I've done trips with you. I've done trips with Jeremy. I can just imagine what it would be like. So that's very, very cool. Tom, we've discussed a lot of things. I know we could do like a whole series of podcast episodes with you. That's why you already have a podcast, because you've got a lot of stories and things to talk about. But I'm curious, on this particular episode, what did I forget to ask you? What should I've asked you? Or what do you want to make sure our listeners know about you, life, fly fishing, or anything before we wrap this up?
Well, I think that people get intimidated by fly fishing because they think it's really hard. They think it's really expensive, but um, it's not that hard. There are some muscle memory things that you need to learn, like any sport. It's a hand-eye coordination, but it's not that hard, and it doesn't have to be that expensive. You don't have to go to Iceland and buy $1,000 fly rods. You could go around the corner with a 200 $200 rod. I recommend people spend at least $200 for a fly rod if they want to do it. But you go around the corner and catch bass and panfish, and I just got a book from um, a guy who wrote a book all about fishing. Is it Dallas or Houston? Let me check. Dallas Fort Worth area. Fly fishing the Dallas. I mean, would you think fly fishing in the Dallas Fort Worth area would be worth a book? And it is. I've done it. So you don't have to be a world traveler, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. It's just another way of fishing, and I think it's a really fun way of fishing.
You said you bought was it your first rod at Western Auto?
Yeah,
I'm trying to get my head around that.
it was a hardware store. It was a hardware
Okay.
store.
All right. Okay. I get that. Do you remember the first fish you caught on a fly?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. How much time and effort did you put into it before you caught that first fish?
Years.
Oh, really? Well,
Like 2 years.
You were just talking about how it was
Like 2
be that
years.
intimidating.
Well, when I first started out, I caught a lot of sunfish and small largemouth bass and panfish, just pumpkin seeds and bluegills and stuff like that. But trout fishing is hard. It's
Okay.
harder.
All right. Well, that's okay. I'm happy you clarified that, because I heard you saying people feel intimidated, doesn't da 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 da, and then I asked
Yeah.
you how hard you had to work to catch your first fish, and you said years. But you caught some panfish.
Oh yeah, I caught fish right off, but I didn't
Okay.
catch trout. I mean, I didn't. I had to wait till I got a driver's license, because in Rochester
Yeah.
there weren't any really good trout streams really close to home.
But you obviously enjoyed catching the panfish, the bluegills, all that
Yeah.
stuff right off the bat.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to mention that, because if somebody thinks, oh, I need to go invest all this money, waders,
Yeah.
rods, all this stuff,
No.
learn how to tie flies before I ever catch a fish, that's not a true statement.
And also, don't forget that in those days there were no fly fishing schools, there was no YouTube, there were no good books, so you had to hack your way through it. Now, you can be up to speed in a couple of weeks by practicing and watching YouTube videos. So it's a lot easier learning curve than it used to be. So much
Right.
easier.
For me, the thing that really kind of cracked the nut, if you recall it, that was when I was in the Army, I was going to Alaska. I was getting transferred up there, and I thought, I'm probably going to, we stopped at a Cabela's store in Nebraska or South Dakota, wherever it was, on the way to Alaska. And I'd always been into fishing, and I thought, I need to get a fly. I went into Cabela's. I don't think I went into Cabela's to buy a fly rod, but I went into Cabela's because it was Cabela's, and we were driving by, and I convinced myself I should spend a little bit of money on a fly rod. I bought probably the cheapest rod they had, that was like a 7 or 8 weight, which is kind of for bigger fish. Maybe I don't know what I thought I was going to do. But then I went to Alaska, never pulled it out, went fishing all the time, never pulled it out. Long story short is I get back to Wyoming and living in Wyoming, and I was just bored one day, and I walked into a fly shop, which was very intimidating, to be honest with you, because I didn't know anything, and I thought I was going to be embarrassed. And I walked in there and I said, look, I don't know anything, but I think it'd be really cool. I bought this fly rod. It'd be really cool to catch a fish on it. And the guy looked at it and like, okay, whatever. But he was so nice. He, got my line, tied on a leader, gave me like a dozen flies and taught me how to tie the fly onto the end of the leader. That was it. No technical, nothing. I just knew how to tie the fly onto the end of the leader.
Yep.
But what was great was he drew me a little map on a piece of paper and to a little place. He says, go up this road to the end of this road. There's a gate, go through the gate, go here, go there. And there's this tiny little stream. And I went there and I managed to get my rod rigged up. I managed to get the fly in the water and I caught a little brook trout. And I just I'm like feeling emotional right now. Just the memory of that little, the brook trout ate the fly, took the fly. I kind of set the hook intuitively like a trout fisherman does. And, the brook trout was up in the grass behind me and I had to go get it. But I sat there, I got the fish back in the water and I was like, I just sat there for probably 30 minutes. Like, oh my gosh, I think my life just changed.
Yeah.
And I went back and within a week, I'd given all my conventional gear to my brother. I was like, I don't need this anymore. I don't really know how to fly fish, but if I can't catch a fish on a fly right now, I don't want to catch a fish. And I just went off the deep end. And I was probably a year or so later, I was on the Bighorn River begging, I'd gone through the fly tying class, learned a little bit. And then I went up to the Bighorn River in Montana and I was walking from lodge to the little fly shops. And I want a job. I'll do anything. I'll dig holes, whatever. And, and then a few years later, I met you at Orvis, and it totally changed my life. So it's, my point with that story is anybody that's listening to this, you don't need to go that extreme, but walk into a fly shop. Why not? Don't let anybody intimidate you.
Yeah. And just, you can buy lots of stuff on the internet, but the independent fly shops and stores are the lifeblood of fly fishing. You just can't, there's no substitute for that one-on-one interaction.
Yeah. And most of them are so nice. I remember, I understand that there's some intimidation factor and there's some funny videos that we see online of people that, and you've been involved in some of them that have just kind of been set to be a little bit funny. Or I don't know if you've been involved, but some of the ones I'm talking about, and it can feel like maybe it's intimidating this and that, but just go in. There's places, I've worked at fly shops where we rented equipment. Yeah. I was on the Yellowstone River running a shop and people come in, we'd rent them a rod, some waders, give them some flies, draw, kind of do the little map thing. And they go out and catch some fish and they maybe spent, I don't know, $40 to $80. Maybe that's gone up a little bit, but and that's to go catch a trout on the Yellowstone River. So there's, get into it.
Yeah. And it's changed because in the older days, you could go into a fly shop and there'd be a bunch of, row bros, guides and stuff. They'd be talking off in the corner and they'd ignore you and maybe even make fun of you. And, if you have that experience, just walk out. And those kind of fly shops mostly aren't in business
They didn't
anymore.
make it, did they?
No, they didn't make it. But, the good ones, the ones that are still around, they welcome people that come into the shop and they help them. And they know they're going to have a customer for life if they treat them well.
Do you think that's because at one point, there was a movie that came out called River Runs Through It?
Yeah.
And for a while, there were all these fly shops and you couldn't go on to Amazon and buy a fly rod or do any of this stuff. So they kind of just had this false sense of, we're a fly shop. If you want to go fishing, you got to deal with us. But it's not like that anymore, is it?
No, it's not. It's not.
All right. So very, very cool. You're just a wealth of information. Anybody that's interested in fly fishing definitely should be listening to your podcast. You've got a few books out there. What's the most recent book that you think somebody should go out and buy or consume?
There's one called Fly Fishing for Trout the Next Level, which is kind of like once you gotten started, what do you do next?
Okay.
That's probably the most recent.
Did you write that one? Were you involved in that one?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you had. I just want to make sure so when people go look for it.
Yeah, no, that's my book.
Look for it by Tom Rosenbauer.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Very, very
but
cool.
I think that most people, if they're interested, they're better off watching my YouTube videos, or even better yet, the Orvis Learning Center, which is, if you just Google Orvis Learning Center, you'll find it. But it's a kind of kind of a correspondence course in fly fishing.
So what I heard you just say is, great, you're welcome to buy my book. But my suggestion is go watch the free YouTube videos. That's what I just heard you say.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's what I like about you, Tom.
No, that's the best way to learn. That's the best way to learn. And they start from the very beginning, what's a fly rod? What's fly fishing? How do you do it? Because I'm, pretty much a instructor of novices. That's what I love is it's not the advanced stuff, but teaching new people how to fly fish.
And that's great. I recognize that Orvis, if you look at it from a marketing strategy, bring in new people and all this, but you just fit well with that because of your personality and your love for mentoring people and sharing your knowledge and your expertise. It's not about, I'm sure you have meetings where we talk about how do we get more people into it, but for you personally, just knowing you, it's really not that. It's like, let's just expose people to this. Let's just, instill that love of it. And I've always enjoyed that about you. So. Yeah. Tom, thank you. Thank you so much. Really, this is really, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I was intimidated, but we got through it. Hopefully you'll walk away from this thinking, wow, that was pretty cool to chat with Jason again. It was definitely great to connect with you, and I look forward to doing more of it in the future. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, it was fun, Jason. It was great catching up with you. We've always been good friends, and great to reconnect.
All right, let's do it again soon. Let's not wait so long.
All right, I'm available anytime you want.
And I'm just up the road from Chile right now, and I kind of don't. I mean, I say I live here, but everything's in my suitcase, and every month I have to decide. Every month I have to decide if I'm going to stay in the Airbnb any longer. So and actually, there's another gentleman that's we've got an episode coming out. David Long from Eco Patagonia is another episode that's coming out, and he's down in Chile as well. So maybe we'll meet up down in that neck of the woods. I think you'll enjoy him as well.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, Tom. You have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Jason.
All right. Bye.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.